Take a close look at the cash in your wallet. It might seem like standard paper, but it is actually highly programmed physical media. Since 1996, over 50 of the world's currencies have shared a universal, machine-readable code that operates completely silently. This hidden security feature is known as the EURion constellation, a critical line of defense guarding the world's money from digital counterfeiting. Just a quick initial message. If you enjoy these type of videos, please do subscribe. It really does make a difference. For generations, central banks relied on the analog era of security. Physical security features like intaglio printing, watermarks, and security threads provided sufficient tactile barriers to stop amateur analog counterfeiters. However, the 1990s brought a major digital threat. The commercial boom of high-resolution color photocopiers and desktop publishing software. This commercial boom completely bypassed tactile barriers, democratizing forgery. Central banks realized that physical currency required a digital shield, a machine-readable hardware token embedded directly into the paper. This secret shield went entirely unnoticed until early 2002. Cambridge security researcher Markus Kuhn attempted to photocopy a British £20 note and a €10 note on a new Xerox color photocopier. The machine abruptly halted, refusing to process the image and displaying an anti-counterfeiting firmware error. Isolating the high-resolution scan, Kuhn discovered a recurring pattern of 5 small circles. He coined the portmanteau EURion by combining UR for Euro with the Orion constellation it visually resembled. The exact layout of these 5 circles relies on strict geometric parameters. Each circle is strictly manufactured to be exactly 1 mm in diameter. Furthermore, the maximum separation from the central circle to any outer circle is tightly restricted to roughly 4 mm. This precise spatial layout translates into invariant square distance ratios. This algorithmic logic allows scanner firmware to verify the pattern instantly without computing expensive trigonometric rotations, regardless of orientation. How do digital scanners pick up this pattern so easily without human operators noticing? Central banks deliberately print the rings in pale yellow, green or orange. Because yellow strongly absorbs blue light, standard RGB digital scanners naturally isolate these rings into a high-contrast, machine-readable format. This physics of detection allows the scanner's firmware to instantly detect the pattern via a blue channel filter. There are actually 2 distinct configurations or dialects of this machine code. The technical parameters for these configurations were originally developed by the Specialty Products Division of the Japanese electronics firm Omron Corporation, detailed in a 1994 patent. Pattern Type 1 is the Orion shape, deployed in the US dollar, euro, Japanese yen, Canadian dollar, and British pound. Pattern Type 2 is the Omron Pentagram, deployed in the Chinese yuan, Indian rupee, South African rand, and Egyptian pound. The biggest hurdle for central bank designers is the aesthetic challenge to prevent human operators from noticing and manually defacing the 1 mm circles. Designers must seamlessly weave these rigid geometric patterns into classical national artwork. To make them blend in, the circles are deliberately printed with noisy color irregularities. This mimics the texture of aged paper, successfully avoiding the appearance of pure digital insertions. We can see these artistic disguises in action across the globe. In Japan, the rings hide within flora woven into the center of cherry blossoms. In Europe, they blend into the skies of architectural illustrations. In South Africa, they seamlessly integrate into wilderness imagery. Post-2004 US currency redesigns use typographic integration, cleverly utilizing the denomination numbers themselves. The rigid geometric layout is achieved by perfectly aligning the 0 within the small yellow 20s, 10s and 50s scattered across the background. Meanwhile, the Elgar £20 note featured a brilliant thematic disguise, hiding the code as noteheads on a musical staff to pay tribute to the composer. There is a common myth that software applications like Photoshop rely on the EURion constellation. In reality, these are 2 entirely different technologies. Hardware devices like copiers use the visible EURion constellation to trigger firmware algorithms. Desktop publishing software blocks images using the Counterfeit Deterrent System, or CDS, by Digimark. CDS relies on invisible digital watermarks. Computer scientist Stephen Murdoch proved that software does not rely on the visible constellation, Even if the visible rings are erased from an image, Photoshop will still block the file based entirely on the invisible CDS watermarks. Who manages these parallel security layers? A highly coordinated global body known as the Central Bank Counterfeit Deterrence Group, or CBCDG. Organized at the request of the G10 central bank governors in 2000, it aligns over 35 central banks and note printing authorities worldwide. The CBCDG manages both the global deployment of the physical EURion hardware standards and the proprietary counterfeit deterrent system software binaries provided directly to software companies. To see where this fits, we can view modern currency security as a three-tiered pyramid. At the base is level 1, the public layer, which consists of intuitive visual and tactile features like holograms, watermarks, optically variable ink, and intaglio printing. In the middle is level 2, the machine layer, designed specifically for copiers and software. This is where the EURion constellation, UV luminescence, and the CDS operate. Finally, at the peak is level 3, the central bank layer, utilizing highly classified covert markers and forensic infrared patterns detectable only by institutional sorting machines. In closing, the true genius of the EURion constellation lies in the printability paradox and its self-locking mechanism. The pattern can always be printed by central banks without restriction. However, the exact moment those 5 dots are physically printed onto a sheet of paper, that document triggers a one-way hardware lock. It can never be successfully copied or scanned by a consumer device again. It stands as a triumph of security engineering, a silent geometric guardian successfully defending the global economy from the digital age. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, please like and subscribe.